Hey guys, this is Danny Boy. Little break from Insanity Combat for a few minutes, and I just wanted to show off this view. I have to say, upon first entering Citadel Station in Mass Effect 3, my first thought was just, wow. And I definitely just sat and I watched for a few minutes and just took it in. You know, they've come so far since Mass Effect 1 and even Mass Effect 2, and I often say, or will say to my friends or whatever, that BioWare does a lot of things well, but they have trouble designing really compelling environments. Dragon Age 1 being a prime example of this, very muddy, very swampy at times. But this game, wow. They really have outdone themselves with the texturing and just the artistic design and direction and just everything. This is the random Spectre kiosk, apparently, of the game, my little Spectre section. And I just came in here because I wanted to show the 3 weapons you can buy from the Spectre kiosk, which I'll show in a second. But I wanted to read this. So, if you didn't want this random, pretty irrelevant spoiler, it's actually not irrelevant, but spoiler. Apologies. I do say spoiler-free for the most part, but sometimes it can't be helped. So yes, the Black Widow, which is essentially a Widow with some extra rounds, it seems, and is maybe much heavier, something like that. And then the Wraith is an Eviscerator with less rounds, but it's lighter, it seems, and I wonder, is less rounds less chambered rounds, or just less reserve? Because chambered rounds could be a really big deal as a negative. And then the Paladin is just, it seems, a souped-up Carnifex. So, considering they cost 250,000 credits, and I was given like 3,500 upon coming here, or rather 35,000, but still, upon coming here, I'm going to have to say that that's going to take a while. And here we have the shooting range. They actually put in a shooting range in the game, and it's pretty cool. For just, if nothing else, testing weapons and figuring out spread. I'm using the, I think it's called the Hurricane SMG here, and my god, the kick on this thing, you can't compensate for it. I mean, maybe you can if you have just some freaky mouse sensitivity, like incredibly low and just push down, but with my sensitivity, it's just, it's not happening. The kick is crazy on the Hurricane. It does a lot of damage, though. If you can keep it on target for any period of time, it does a tremendous amount of damage. And yeah, you can even, you know, change the distance for, you know, sniping or just long range or whatever. And pretty cool. I just, right here, wanted to test, you know, what is the grouping on the Predator pistol? And you can't really see because of the lighting. But I could see, it's like, ah, terrible. At these ranges, this one's a little better, I think. And you can even see, just watching the bullets fly, that, yeah, the grouping is pretty terrible for this gun, so quite the large spread on the Predator pistol. And here we have a workbench that allows us to finally mod our weapons. And I have a couple for the shotty. One, I believe, lets me shoot through cover to an extent at significant reduction in damage. And also, you ignore 25% of defense on armored targets. So that's a pretty big deal. Makes it very powerful against armored targets, even more so than the Crusader already was. It was already pretty solid anti-armor, as shotguns were in Mass Effect 2. And then a Shredder thing. Or wait, not a Shredder thing, that's what I just said. And then a high-caliber barrel with 15% more damage, which is quite significant, so pleased to see that. And I think the only other thing I have a mod for at this point in time is SMG, and that was a weight reduction. So yes, I actually mentioned in a previous video, I wonder if they have like lightweight alloys or something to reduce the weight of guns, and yes, they do. Thank goodness. Because as you see, I just went from like 150% encumbrance to 84%. Huge, huge difference. Good to see. Alright, so we are now selecting our squad. We are back with James, as Caden is no longer with us, and for now. And we are heading to Palaven. Actually, a moon of Palaven, Palaven being the Turian homeworld. That's where we're going next. Again, I know I say no spoilers or you know, minimal spoilers, but that's where we're going. I mean, I think you should know where we are at a given time. We've been to Earth, Mars, and now a moon off of Palaven. It's called like Meta or something. Starts with an M. Maybe. Possibly. And just specking up. I'm just showing this to you guys because, I mean, you should have an up-to-date view of my spec. I'm finally specking into weight reduction. Don't want to have massive cooldowns, want very short cooldowns, so... And, as I said, I dislike how short the duration of stasis is, so let's bump that up. And then for James, I'm just going to go into Carnage. Fortification, buffing that up more affects, at least in the early levels, its detonation effect, the buff to melee. Yeah, recharge speed when armor is purged, but why would I purge it on James? He's not going to go into melee. So... But later on, there's some defensive upgrades, but I have a feeling that fortification is going to be one of the last things I bother pouring points into beyond the 1-point wonder sort of deal. Carnage will probably be what I spec mostly in. Alright, so we're finally landing, finally getting into some combat. Our goal is to clear the landing zone, which is rather difficult with a shotgun and a Hurricane SMG with a ridiculous, ungodly kick. As you can see, it's really difficult to control. And we are now encountering husks. Okay, one thing I noticed fairly quickly is husks no longer are weak in the midsection, and especially the legs. It was very common tactic in Mass Effect 2 to take a shoddy out if you had one and just blow them in half and aim for the legs. It really doesn't seem to work anymore. Headshots actually seem to be far more effective than leg shots, or just center mass shots, just body shots. Seem to be far more effective. Also, note how they are completely ignoring my drone. Bit of a lag spike there. They are not paying attention to the drone at all. Have to say, the drone has been significantly nerfed this time around. The fact that enemies just don't pay attention to it whatsoever make it far less useful. I have a feeling that the drone really isn't going to come into its own until it's fully upgraded with rockets, because even its or maybe when it, if you go for the spark AoE that it gets, but the detonation, it's honestly not destroyed that often unless you're really just behind cover and spamming it really deep into enemy territory. They just generally don't target it, barring an AoE or whatever. Unless you are absolutely... There's no way they can get to you. They generally just don't target it. So I don't see detonation being that terribly useful. And... yeah, even the shield bonuses might not be that useful, just because they don't attack it. So I'm thinking probably the AoE, the lightning AoE, and rockets for it. But then again, when you do spec it into rockets, and I've done that in the demo, it moves away from enemies, and the AoE is, it's point-blank area effect, PBAoE, so I don't know how synergistic that's going to be either. So I don't know. Not really sure about the drone at this point, what to do. Because it doesn't do good damage. I mean, all I can really say for it right now is that it stunts, which is nice. Periodically. It can't perma-lock down a target anymore either, it seems. Like it once could. Whereas in Mass Effect 2, it was a huge distraction, it was easily spammable, it attacked and affected all forms of defense when you spec'd it into attack drone. It got enemies out of cover, and it can still do some of those things, but just the fact that it's no longer just a huge decoy like it once was is disconcerting. Granted, there is an ability called Decoy in the game, so maybe that will serve the purpose that I'm looking for. Assuming there are bonus skills in the game eventually, which I really hope there are. I will be sad if there are not. That was one of my favorite things about the previous games, and really added diversity to different builds. So yes, this is a relatively short video, but as you can see, headshots really help against the husks. And you can even, survive meleeing them for a bit. I get some heavy melee shots off at times. I finish them off with melee frequently. They definitely have a very large delay until they melee you once they get close. Whereas in Mass Effect 2, they kind of just bum rushed you and hit you immediately. Like, you really couldn't let them get close, from what I recall at least. We're about to see a very short cutscene, which I'm not editing it out, because I don't feel like it.
We can't repair it from this panel.
So deal. and all it is you're just selecting which team member you want to fight with and which one you want to go up the tower.
If you can keep husks from climbing up
And of
behind
course
me,
I'm
I'd
going with
appreciate it.
James, because James is badass. I already love James.
Ready, James?
Hell yeah. Let's take them.
So more husks, not too terribly difficult, but I'm going to try out the Hurricane SMG, see how effective it is at very short ranges, and it actually is if you can just land the damn hits. Easier said than done. Definitely always aim for the legs with this thing. The kick is so crazy. And I think I just one-shotted a husk with heavy melee, so heavy melee might actually one-shot husks. Something to keep in mind. I feel like I would be going nuts right now as a Vanguard. Just with Nova alone, I feel like I would be going nuts. I sense a Vanguard playthrough in my future as well. So we're just about done with this. Yeah, swarms of husks on their own really not too big of a problem, but as you will see in my next video, things become a bit more complicated later on.
Let me know when you've got something. I'll help your men till I hear from you.
Also, I have to say,
Shepard out.
war zones are cool. They did a phenomenal job with this moon. It absolutely feels like a war. Just looking at Palaven is amazing. Headshots with the shotgun are also very satisfying. I can't wait to get a shotgun spike for melee hits. I hope that affects your melee. It should. Like the actual animation. Backwards roll can also be useful. I use it a few times when I can against husks. Really, just packing a shotgun, and I skipped it. I didn't know it was there, but they give you a scimitar shotgun. It's laying on the floor before you enter this area. So if you notice it, you'll even have the opportunity to change your loadout to have a shotgun. So there's no reason not to for this sequence, and you should. You absolutely should, regardless of your class. Well guys, this is coming to a close. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned for more. I'll be releasing several more videos today. I've been doing this for hours now, so I'm getting tired, but I will persevere.
Go ahead.
Alright guys, I'm gonna cut out here. Have a good one.